Valerie Yvette Peterson, and welcome to Valerie's Verses for Monday Night Poetry. Tonight we're sitting with a question that lives on both sides of the heart. Love should not feel like it's confusing. Or is it just that's the way love goes? Because on one hand, many of us have learned that real love does bring clarity, not chaos. That when someone is truly for you, you don't spend your days trying to decode their silence, guessing their intentions, or questioning your place in their life. Because there's a part of us that believes love should be a safe space and that you should feel some form of peace, like a steadiness, like something that you do not have to constantly translate. But then you have the naysayers on the other hand, that we have those voices in our head and lived experiences that say love is not always that simple, that real connections can be messy, they can be layered and uncertain often in the beginning, but people grow into understanding each other. You have that perspective. And vulnerability itself can feel like confusion when you're standing in unfamiliar emotional territory. So tonight is not about choosing a side too quickly. It's about sitting in that tension with honesty and asking yourself, when does confusion mean something is wrong? And when does it simply mean something is still evolving or becoming? My poem. Love showed up like a weather report with no forecast. Sunshine and storms in the same breath. A compass spinning in my hands, always moving and never settling north. They told me that love is like a river, but I've been standing in water that keeps changing direction. I started calling inconsistency passion, and calling waiting patience, calling almost enough. But love should not feel like a locked door where you keep having to change keys just to find peace inside yourself. It should not feel like a book where the ending keeps disappearing every time you believe in the story. Maybe real love still stretches you, but it doesn't erase you. So I ask myself now these questions. Is this love or just noise that I learned to call music? Tonight on Valerie's Verses with Monday Night Poetry, episode Love Shouldn't Feel Like Confusion, or is that just the way love goes? Our first topic of discussion is, at what point does confusion become a red flag? Give you time to think about that for a moment. When you think about the pros of that piece, do you ever think to yourself, when you're in a positive state, if months have passed and you're still trying to figure out where you stand, that's not mystery. That's uncertainty. And healthy relationships do provide clarity. But when you look at the cons of that, you think to yourself, not every person processes emotions the same way. Sometimes people need time to understand their own feelings before they can clearly communicate them. Or is that just an excuse we give ourselves? Valerie's Verses, my take. Confusion becomes a red flag when time passes and clarity never arrives. When you're still guessing where you stand instead of being shown through consistent words and actions. At that point, it stops being a mystery and it starts becoming emotional uncertainty that leaves you ungrounded. But the other truth is that not everyone processes love at the same pace. Some people need time to understand their own emotions before they can actually express them clearly. So the real question is whether the confusion is temporary or evolving, or whether it has become the permanent relationship language. Our next point. Can someone love you deeply and still leave you confused? Here's the prose part of that thought. Yes, this is some thoughts. Have you ever felt this? That people love you and still be emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or poor communicators? Love alone doesn't automatically create healthy relationships. You'll hear people say that. You'll also hear people say, well, if someone truly loves you deeply, they should be making an effort to help you feel secure and understood and valued, not constantly questioning everything. Here's Valerie's verses, my thoughts. Someone can, in fact, love you and still leave you confused. Love does not always equal emotional availability, consistency, or the ability to communicate in a way that makes you feel secure. But the other truth is just as real. Deep love should create a sense of safety, not constant uncertainty. Because if love is real and if love is intentional, it should move toward clarity, not keep you questioning your place in it. Our third point. Does healthy love feel peaceful, or does it require a certain amount of struggle? Well, you may have had this thought. Healthy love should bring more peace than turmoil. Life itself is hard enough without a relationship becoming another battlefield. And then you have other thoughts that might say, well, every meaningful relationship requires work. Two imperfect people learning how to love each other will inevitably experience struggle and growing pains. Valerie's verses, my thoughts. Healthy love lives in a tension between peace and effort. On one hand, it should feel more like a safe space than a constant battlefield. Something that steadies you, not something that keeps you in emotional survival mode. Life is already heavy enough without love adding confusion at its main language. But on the other hand, real love is never effortless. It asks for growth and patience and two imperfect people learning how to meet each other in the middle. So the real question isn't whether love should have struggle. It's whether that struggle is building something stronger, or is it slowly breaking you down? And our final thought. Have you ever stayed in a relationship longer than you should have because you confused potential with reality? Here's a thought. I wasn't in love with who they were. I was in love with who I hoped they would become. That's a painful lesson that many of us learn. And another thought. Sometimes people do grow. Sometimes patience, grace, and commitment allow a relationship to evolve into something stronger than it was in the beginning. Here's Valerie's verses. My thoughts. This is where love gets really honest with us. because many of us have lived on both sides of this truth. On one side, we've stayed too long because we weren't in love with who someone actually was in real time, but with the version that we kept holding on to that they would become one day. We invested in potential, filled in the gaps with possibility, and we called it love while we quietly ignored what was really in front of us. But on the other side, there are stories where growth was real, where patience wasn't wasted and grace wasn't foolish, where two imperfect people stayed and learned and adjusted and slowly built something stronger than what was existing in the beginning. So the question becomes quite uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And this is the question: are we truly honoring potential that will never arrive? Or are we giving something real in real time that really needs to fully take time and become? In my closing thought, is confusion a normal part of love? Or is it often our heart trying to make excuses for what our spirit already knows? Thank you for joining me. Join me next Monday on Valerie's Verses on Monday Night Poetry.